Welcome back to creating a looping animation walk cycle for the game engine. In the last video, we cropped our animation in Motion Builder. Now to start with, we need to create a matching hookup, both front and back. So Motion Builder does this extremely well with the Pose Control tool set. We can find that down in the Resources, Pose Control tab. Now what we're going to do is position our time slider at the first frame. We're going to make sure that Character Controls is set to full body, and we're going to select the root node, so the entire control rig is selected. And we're going to make sure that we are not working on a base layer. The base layer is obviously every single frame is keyed. That's indicative of motion capture data. So we want to make sure that we're working on an animation layer. Click on Animation Layer 1 or Create One with the green plus icon. And now you can see it's clear of data. We're going to go ahead and key on frame 1. Now you can see that that animation pose is keyed. The next thing we're going to do before we scrub off of that is capture that pose. Within the pose controls, go ahead and click on the little green plus icon. It'll give you an iconic representation of that pose, as well as over here the list. If you open that up, you can see that it is listed here and ready for you to apply on another frame. Alright, you've keyed on that particular keyframe. We're going to scrub over to the very last frame of animation, and we're going to double click on that pose in order to place that captured pose on that frame. Now, if you were looking carefully at my character as I double clicked on that listed item, you could have seen that some of the arms and some of the other limbs actually moved slightly. So we're going to go ahead and make sure that we key all on that frame as well before we scrub off of it. Now go ahead back about 4 or 5 frames, and there you'll find that you're just landing and transferring your weight onto that foot. We're going to go ahead and zero key. You can see quite a bit of movement at that point. And what that's intended to do is tell the tool set not to influence the base layer of motion capture data until you get to this point where the zero key is laid out. And from this point to this point, you have 4 frames to morph into that pose that we pasted there from the beginning. Now, that will create a hookup frame so that the intent is to create a seamless looping animation. That animation will play over and over again, and if the first frame and last frame are matching perfectly, you will not see any little jumps in the movement or glitches, as we call them. Alright, so if you play out that animation, you'll see that you still have translation data there. So you're not going to be able to detect if that pose is working for you yet or not. But before we go any further, what we're going to do is come up to the first frame, position your time slider, right click right on that, go down to time, and then there's a little flyout that'll come out. Go ahead and select Set Start. Alright, and on the other end, you're going to go ahead and position that time slider over the end, right click, time, and set end. Alright, now as we progress, we're going to go ahead and be able to take the translation data out of there. But before we do that, we're going to go ahead and save. File, save as, a different iteration. This will be iteration 6. The last one was called cropped. This one is a loop. Saving with the standard settings. Alright, now down here in the navigator you have additional options. We're looking for characters right here, and if you open that up you'll see another item called characters. If you double click on that you'll get some options right here in the navigator called character settings. You're going to scroll down until you see modifiers. Open that up. Now inside modifiers you come down and you'll see in place. Go ahead and open that up, and inside the in place location you'll see your 3 axes. Now this character is traversing in the x-axis, so in order to take this translation data out we're going to click on, or X, put a little check mark in the lock X. What that'll do is it will separate your characterized rig from the control rig. Now what you want to do is go ahead and play your animation, and without looking at the control rig we're looking only at the characterized rig. It's looking pretty smooth in this direction, so we're going to stop the sim and we're going to another orthographic view, perhaps the right view, and play the sim again. Alright, we've got a little bit of a glitch happening from left to right. That's glitching in the z-axis, so we're going to stop the sim, go to frame 1, and we're also going to try locking down the z-axis. Now you see that that displaced that quite a bit. Let's go ahead and play that. And there does not appear to be a glitch in the movement of the characterized rig. The glitch is actually in the control rig. So we're going to go ahead and stop the sim, go back to frame 1. We're going to check again in the front view. Go ahead and play, and it still looks fairly smooth. So at this time what we're going to do is transfer, or excuse me, bake down the animation on the skeleton, and then we will not preserve the information on the control rig. We want to preserve the information on the skeleton itself. So go to big blue icon. You're going to bake plot. Be careful what you click on. Go to skeleton drop dot dot dot. Not control rig, but skeleton dot dot dot. And go ahead and use the default settings here. And once you do that, you'll blow away your control rig. And so now, as a last check, you're going to go ahead and run that animation both directions. It looks fairly smooth in the front view. You're going to go to the right, and that looks fairly smooth. No heavy glitches to report. Alright, now with this much work done, before we go on, we're going to go ahead and save this iteration. Save as version 7, and this is